Welcome to the Vari Longmuir Podcast, episode number 18. Welcome to the Vari Longmuir Podcast, and as you may have guessed, I'm your host, Vari. Since stepping away from the 9-to-5 world back in 2009, I've been a creative director, illustrator, artist, business mentor, and coach to fellow creative types. The intention with this podcast is to offer a fresh perspective about what it really means to be a working creative. I'm offering simple strategies to add a little more joy to your days and sharing my own insights and lessons learned, often the hard way, from over a decade of being my own boss. Now let's get into today's episode. Hi guys, it's Vari here. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I hope you have had an amazing week. I am wrapping up a few projects here over the next 2 weeks before me and my 2 kids and my guy head overseas for a little trip, which is going to be so nice. I'm someone who really loves being at home, and I'm so fortunate that I live in such a beautiful part of the world that a lot of people come to on their holidays. But I also love getting to travel as well. And certainly traveling with my sons is something that's super important to me. So yeah, I love being at home, but I love getting the chance to get away and see new things and experience new things and to kind of open their eyes to what else is out there in the world. So yeah, it's going to be a nice little break away, get some sunshine, get offline, read some books. If you have any recommendations, please let me know. Yeah, it'd be nice to just have some tech-free time. But don't worry, the podcast will be going out as normal whilst I'm overseas. I am very organised and have them all lined up for you. So I'll still be in your ears at the same time every Friday. This week, I want to chat about the idea of time sucks and why they are just not worth my energy. So this all came about a few weeks ago when I, as I always do, was on my way home from training and stopped at my local cafe for my coffee on the way home. And I was chatting with the girl who works there, and there was a bit of a line in front of me, so I had some time to spare. And the girl who works there was chatting with me, and she was asking what was on for the week. And I kind of rhymed off a few things that was on my calendar and on my schedule for that week. And she said, geez, you're so busy. How do you do it all? And it's funny because busy is a word that I gave up quite some time ago. This idea of being forever and endlessly busy is something that I think I had inherited from my mum. She was someone who was always busy and would never give herself 2 minutes to just sit down and have a cup of tea at any point during the day. And yeah, it was something that I let go a while ago because it just was not serving me, this idea of being busy all the time. And I really think that it's a marker of success for some people that it's successful to be busy. It means that you're in demand and you're doing lots of things that are super important. But for me, I try my very hardest to be unbusy on a day-to-day basis. And it's funny because I said that to the girl in the cafe that, well, no, I don't really allow myself to get busy. I just have the right amount of work on. And it got me to thinking about just how much I do get done in my days and in my weeks and in my months, but also how much free time I have as well. I think of all the people I know, I'm probably one of the people who gets the most done, is the most productive, and who also has the most amount of free time. I've got afternoons in my week where I don't work at all that are simply blocked out in my calendar as dreaming time. That's it. So I get to do whatever I want in those couple of hours. I've also got full weekends that I block out. There's evenings that I block out. So I think people may have the impression that I'm someone who is working every hour of every day, and that's really not the case. And that's some of the work that I do with clients that is the most transformative, is the work around how we use our time, how we can schedule things so we can stay accountable to ourselves, and really just having our own back, doing the things that we say we're going to do, and showing up for ourselves in a bigger and more committed way. And it's through that continual showing up for myself and doing what I say I'm going to do has really helped me to create massive momentum in my business, but also giving me so much free time that I can spend by myself. I can work out, I can go for a walk, I get to spend time with my kids after school, get to catch up with friends if they're available. So it's really opened up so much more space for me outside of work. And when you do the work that you love, as many of you listening to the podcast do, it's kind of easy to get into working all the time because we do love it so much. But being structured with my work and also being structured with my free time, and in as equally a controlling way, some might say, has given me so much freedom and so much opportunity to be spontaneous. I think a lot of people think that if we overstructure things, then there's no space for adventure and no space to be spontaneous and do things, that seem quite fun and playful. But for me, the opposite has been true. If I can carve out blocks of time that aren't accounted for, then I get to be spontaneous. I get to go off and do things. Just last week, I had a block of time in the afternoon, and so I booked myself in for a massage. And hadn't I had everything else in my week scheduled, then I wouldn't have found the time to go and do that. So yeah, spontaneity comes through the planning, I've found, which is quite ironic, but it's definitely been the case for me. One of the reasons that I've had so much more of this free time and I've been able to do things that I actually enjoy in the free time is by letting go of things that were complete time sucks to me, and that were not worth my energy. So that, as you can tell from the heading, is the subject for this week's podcast. I want to share with you 9 time sucks that are not worth my energy. Let's kick off with number 1. The first time suck that is not worth my energy is spending 2 hours of my day inside of a gym. Now, when we look at it, we have 24 hours each day, right? And I like to get a good 8 hours chunk of that for sleeping, which leaves me with 16 hours of awake time to do all the things that need to be done in the day. If I am going to dedicate 2 hours of this to going to the gym and being inside of a gym, then that's 12.5% of my waking hours spent inside a gym. Now, I'm not sure about you, but for me, that is a big chunk of my day that's spent inside of a gym. And as you'll know from previous episodes, exercise and regular exercise at that is something that is super important to me. It's definitely a priority for me, but spending 2 hours inside of a gym is just not cutting it for me. So for me, I work out structured with a trainer and with a group of other people, 2 days a week, sometimes 3. And we have a solid hour. We work for 1 solid hour and then we get out and we go home. And for me, it's been a really liberating way to maintain exercise and maintain something that's really important to me and a priority for me, but without having to give it this ridiculous amount of time. I have played for national sports teams in the past, for volleyball and for netball. So sports has always been a massive part of my life and health and fitness. And so I'm someone that is used to spending hours and hours and hours training. And it's something that I've always done and enjoyed. But I could say that there were other areas in my life that were being perhaps a bit neglected, especially when it came to my business, because I was telling myself the story that for it to be effective, I had to do 2 hours of hard slog in the gym, every day or 5 days a week or whatever it may have been at the time. Or for me to go out for a run, a 20-minute run was worthless. If I'm going to go for a run, it has to be a 2-hour run. And what I've realized is that is a time suck for me and not worth my time. So I am much more focused on using that time that I have to exercise effectively and quickly and getting it done and then getting on with my day. So 2 hours inside of a gym was one of the time sucks that I have thankfully given up. Number 2 is trying to make all the people like me. It's said that you can't be all things to all people, and I so believe this, and it feels so liberating to just own that thought and choose to believe it. It's funny because there's people that I love, there's people whose podcasts I love, whose YouTube channels I love, there's artists that I love, and then other people can't stand them. And it's so true because we can't be all things to all people. And if we're out there in the world saying things that are important to us, then we're going to attract some opinions of people. I mean, there are some people who don't like Oprah, so it just goes to show that you can't win them all. So I've given up trying to be all the things to all the people. Number 3 is finishing a book, a podcast, or a movie that I'm not enjoying. I used to feel so guilty if I didn't finish everything. And I started to get curious about why I was choosing to think that. It made me feel like a failure. It made me feel like I wasn't able to stick to anything. But now I've just given myself permission to say that if I'm not enjoying something, then I'm just going to let it slide. It is not a big deal. That book can be on the bookshelf and be half read, and that's okay. No one who comes into my house will know that unless I tell them, which I probably did a lot of the time. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to pick up a book and put it down after 3 pages. But if I'm halfway through and it's not for me, then I give myself permission to just gracefully stop reading it and move on to something that I do enjoy. Number 4 is worrying. We think that worry is super necessary, right? Because when we worry about something, it shows that we care about it and it shows that we're being considerate. If our kid's having a hard time at school, then we think that we're being a really good parent if we worry about it. But indulging in worry never creates any positive results. Think about it. If you're worrying about your kid at school, if they're perhaps being bullied, it doesn't make them any less likely to be bullied that day if you're sat at home worrying about it. And actually, if anything, if we continue to worry about things, we're actually making it far more likely that they will happen. You know, the law of attraction says that like attracts like. So if we're spending all of our time and energy worrying about something that we don't want to happen, it's much more likely going to happen than if we just choose to focus our energy in a more constructive way. Not worrying doesn't mean that you don't care. But indulging in worry is not going to help you, and it's not going to help the person that you're worrying about or the situation that you're worried about. So giving up worry has been a massive release of one of my time sucks. Time suck number 5. Game of Thrones or any type of comic book or superhero movie. Nope, not interested. The rebel part of me is just not interested in any of these cult obsessions that people seem to have. I don't care how good it is or how much you think I'll love it. I'm all good, thanks. Number 6 is consuming daily news. This is something that I stopped doing quite some time ago, was watching the news or even having the news on in the background or having it on the radio in the car. And it's something that I've consciously chose to not expose my children to on a regular basis. I remember growing up, my dad would come home from work around 6 o'clock and he would sit down in his chair and he would be simultaneously reading the newspaper and listening to the news that was on the TV in the background. Who says men can't multitask? And I realized that I was just exposed to this news cycle on a daily basis at home in my parents' house. And I think as I became more aware of that, I was just really intentional about what energy I was letting into my home, especially with regards to my boys. So the daily news cycle is not healthy for us. You know, there are issues and current affairs that are going on that I am interested in and want to know more about. And I will go out and find information about it and research it and study it. But when it comes to the daily headlines in the newspapers and on the local news, I do everything in my power to not expose myself to it. I read something recently that said that as humans, we are physically and emotionally not built to withstand this level of catastrophe that comes at us through the news. And I'm inclined to believe that that's true. Finding out about tragic events that are happening all over the world that we don't have any control over isn't helping us on a physical, emotional, or a spiritual level. So for me, I have edited out any unnecessary catastrophe in my life, and this definitely includes the daily news. Number 7 is trying to convince people I'm right. I spent a lot of time in my past trying to convince people that I'm right. There's been times in the past that I have made choices that have been quite challenging for my family to accept. And it required so much energy of me to try and convince them of my choice and my decision, and that this was what was right for me. And the funny thing is, the actual thing that was happening, the actual situation, took less of my energy than the trying to convince the other people that I was right did. So for me now, I've adopted more of a long game strategy when it comes to decisions that I'm making for me and for my family, and how that affects other people. So I'm not trying to convince other people that I'm right or try to make them wrong or try to get them to see my point of view. Rather, I'm trying to just embody the decision and just live through my decision and be an example to them that this is actually what's right for me, by showing them through what's happening in my life and through the actions that I'm taking, and not trying to convince them with words that this is in fact right for me. Allowing people to be wrong about me as well is very much part of this, and being okay with people having different opinions of me than I have of myself. Now, when you embody your decision and you don't try to convince people through your words, then they might never actually get on board. That's something you've got to consider. They may tell you that they could see that it was the right decision for you, but they might never do that. They might never tell you that they agree, and they might never fully be on board with your decision. Nonetheless, that has to not stop you from moving forward. I've become so much less affected by what other people think I should be doing because I'm so much more future focused, and I'm not living in the past of trying to convince them of decisions that I've made in the past, and rather just being future focused and allowing people to be wrong about me. Number 8 is following hundreds or, in fact, thousands of people on Instagram. This was a massive time suck for me. I was following a ridiculous amount of people, and I've found myself spending hours each day analysing other people's curated digital lives. And I realised it was not having a positive impact on me mentally or emotionally or physically. There was this real fear of missing out, that I had to know all the things that were going on with all the quote unquote important people of Instagram. And what I realized was I was doing that at the detriment of the actual, in real life, important people like me and maybe my friends and my family and my kids. And so what I've done is I have handpicked a selection of under 50 people to follow on Instagram. And it's people who truly inspire me. And this 50 changes from time to time, depending on what I'm interested in at that particular time in my life. But I keep it under 50. I want to make sure that I am super intentional with what comes at me through social media. You know, we often hear people complain of everything that they're bombarded with on social media, but we do have control of what we allow into our lives, especially through social media. So for me, getting really intentional and editing that number down so it is a small intentional number of people who truly inspire me, not people that trigger any kind of negative self-talk in me, but people who truly inspire me or entertain me or educate me. It feels like such a healthier place to jump on and visit and then come back off. So if you find that social media is a time suck for you, then I highly recommend curating exactly what it is you're seeing every single time you go on there. Number 9 is researching to find answers for other people's questions. This may sound funny, but this is something I used to do all the time, and I catch myself doing from time to time again. Only a few weeks ago, I found myself doing this, and I had to just stop and reassess the situation. So, how this plays out, people will ask me a question, and I won't know the answer. But then I'll make it my job to go off and find the answer for them. So I think it comes from being a bit of a reformed or still in still in reformation people pleaser. I'd spend hours Googling around trying to find the answers to other people's questions. People would ask me things like, oh, where's the best place to take kids to eat in Melbourne? And I would then spend hours telling them the top 20 places that they could take their kid, which is crazy, right? Like rather than just going and Googling it themselves. Or the one that happened a few weeks ago was a girlfriend of mine sent me a message saying, hey, where's the best area to stay in New York City? Now, I've spent a lot of time there and I know the best areas. But of course, I took it upon myself to want to start searching through Airbnb, asking her what date she was going, how many people were going, what kind of things she wanted to do while she was there. And I was like, what on earth are you doing, Vari? This is not your job. And so I've decided now that if I have a personal recommendation for your question, like a one word or one sentence answer, then I'll tell you. Otherwise, I'm going to tell you, I don't know. Why don't you Google it? It seems super simple, right? But there was this part of me that wanted to have all the answers. And because I always wanted to have all the answers, all my friends and family would come to me because guess what? Patty's the one that's got all the answers because she spends the tens of hours researching it that we don't want to do ourselves. So, also, if you're the other person on the other side of this, if there is a question that you can simply Google and get the answer for, please do that and don't ask the people that you know will go and do the hours of research for you. Number 10 is MasterChef style meals at dinner time. I've spoken about this before about giving up the need to cook gourmet meals for my children every single night of the week. That time suck has long gone for me. Instead, it's simple, healthy, and quick. That's my method for dinners. Take it or leave it. And finally, the number 11 of the time sucks that are not worth my energy is this: being that ever present cheerleader for people who never show up for themselves. Now, don't get me wrong, I love nothing more than supporting my clients and watching them move to new levels of awareness, new levels of focus, and new levels of success in their lives. And I love being that voice of encouragement for my friends and my family too. What I won't spend my energy on now is with people who can't show up for themselves. Now, we all have days where we have self-doubt. I get that. We need that extra little external boost. And I'm more than happy to be that person for my friends and my family and my clients. But I realized a while ago that I can't want more for someone if they don't want that for themselves. We've all got to be responsible for our own basic well-being. So I will cheerlead the people who are taking the action and they are in the dirt doing the work. But I can't want for people what they don't want for themselves. There you have it. The 11 time sucks that are not worth my energy. Now, some of these things may really resonate with you and others won't. Maybe cooking gourmet meals for your family every single night is an opportunity for you to connect with them, for you to switch off from the day. Maybe it's a type of meditation or creative practice for you. And I absolutely love that. These are the things for me that I realized I was doing out more of obligation or what other people expected of me than what I truly wanted to spend my time on. Giving up these things and getting really intentional with my time has been life-changing for me. It has allowed me to be so much more productive and gain so much more momentum in my business. As I said at the top of the episode, having this structure has given me so much more free time for me personally, for me with my kids, with my partner, with my friends. It really has opened up so much space and time for me. So many people complain that they don't have enough time to do all the things they want to do. But I guarantee that there are some things that they're doing every single day that are time sucks. They're either doing it because they feel obliged to do it, or they're doing it unconsciously. I would suggest that something like social media is probably something that we could all reduce our time on. It's not a healthy place for us to be spending so much time, especially if there are things that aren't getting done. We're not creating things, we're not doing the things that we want to do because we don't have the time. There's always going to be time to be able to pull that back. Also, with the people that are watching Game of Thrones, you, my friends, have plenty of time if you just stopped watching all the Games of Thrones to get done the things that you want to do. So there's definitely opportunities to really get clear about how you want to spend your time. Get intentional with where your energy is going on a daily basis. You maybe just need to carve out half an hour, a couple of days a week to be able to really focus on that thing that you want to work towards. And as I said, this structure of planning and goal setting is one of the most transformative things that I have taught my clients. I really see it as a spiritual practice of planning ahead of time, of being responsible for how we show up in the world and where we direct our time and our energy and our love. And it really has transformed my life on a day-to-day basis. That's all for this week, guys. For updates, be sure and subscribe to my newsletter over at varilongmuir.com and come follow me on Instagram. I'm at Vari Longmuir. Thanks as always for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. If you enjoyed this podcast and you're ready to dive in deeper to create a business and life with intention, I would love to chat with you. Each month, I offer a limited number of discovery calls. I like to think of these as a casual first date. It's an opportunity for us to connect, for me to find out what's going on in your business and your life at the moment, and see if we're a good fit to coach together. These calls are completely free and with zero obligation. And I know from every single person I talk to, they leave with more clarity and more focus, whether they go on to work with me or not. So it's a win-win. There is literally nothing to lose. For more information and to book our virtual coffee date, head on over to varilongmuir.com/coaching.